Well, good Friday evening. Thank you for joining us here, taking some time out of your weekend to join us on Hurricane Hub Live. This is our special 13 News Now Plus broadcast where we talk about the tropics, what's been going on, what we're looking at over the upcoming couple of weeks. And it's Friday, June 27th. You know, we've had a hot week here in Hampton Roads. It almost felt like the tropics with that high heat and humidity. And if you're joining us from elsewhere across the country, we're broadcasting here out of WVEC in Norfolk, Virginia, right along the coastline of Virginia. We've got Virginia Beach, the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So we're talking about what's going on in the tropics. And really, it's quiet. It's been quiet pretty much since the start of hurricane season back on June 1st. So we're 27 days in, and so far we've had one named storm, not totally unusual, and it was only around for 12 hours. That was Tropical Storm Andrea back on June 24th, and nothing going on out there really in the Atlantic right now. And as we take a look back at the date of the first named storm over the past 10 years, not counting this year, of course, we had June 24th for Andrea. This is the latest start to those named storms that we've seen in over a decade. Go back to 2024, the first named storm was June 19th, so that was a little bit later than some of these other storms. June 1st, start of hurricane season back in 2023, we had our first named storm. June 5th in 2022. Had some preseason storms back in 2020 and 2021. Of course, 2020, a very active year. Most of those storms were in May. May in 2019, May in 2018, April back in 2017. And then we had an anomaly back in 2016. We had a January storm, believe it or not. It was not really a classic tropical system in January, but again, 2015, May 8th. So this is the latest start to the hurricane season that we've seen in over a decade, and things are quiet out there right now throughout the Atlantic. I have a front that is out here through the North Atlantic, and we watch these waves come off the African coastline, but just not a lot of support to have any of those waves develop. We have the warm water, certainly. There's some wind shear and some dry air that's mixing in, and it's really inhibited any kind of development here through the main development region out here into the Atlantic through the intertropical convergence zone from the Cape Cabo Verde, the Cape Verde, now they're called the Cabo Verde Islands, down again right along the equator over towards South America. That's most of the Atlantic. We still have to include in the Atlantic basin the Caribbean and the Gulf. And we do have a little something going on. If you were joining us yesterday, we were talking about this area of low pressure that was developing over the western Caribbean. It has now moved onshore and is located here right over the Yucatan Peninsula, Mexico. It is producing clouds and some heavy rain through Nicaragua, Belize, Honduras. And as we go here, later tonight, this area of low pressure is going to emerge back out here into the Bay of Campeche. And there is a chance that we could see some development as we go into Saturday or Sunday. Right now, it's only looking about a 30% chance of development, but that's certainly not zero. And we could see some development here in the southern Gulf into this Bay of Campeche region. It will be a fairly short window, just really Saturday into Sunday. By Monday, whatever it is, whether it does develop into a tropical system or whether it's just still a regular old area of low pressure, it's going to move back inland here over central Mexico, and that would keep it from developing. But certainly that potential is there. We've got the warm waters. We'll just have to see if it can get its act together. Now, a Hurricane Hunter aircraft is scheduled to fly into this system tomorrow if necessary. So the Hurricane Center is watching it very closely. Again, a 1 in 3 chance. It wouldn't be a concern really towards the United States. Eventually that low will get pulled up here into the southwest and will bring some rain through Texas and maybe even into New Mexico. Some areas that are dealing with a drought situation could certainly use some rain. So we'll have to watch it over the next couple of days. Again, slight chance of development, but through the main development region, things are quiet. Mentioned it quite a few times, talking about that Saharan dust, and this Saharan dust plays actually not just a role in hurricane development, but some of the nutrients that come with the dust as they work their way here over towards Central America and South America actually helps to fertilize some of the land that is there. So the Saharan dust can be beneficial. Of course, right now, it's also represented by some very dry air, and you'll notice where we have this Saharan dust, we're not seeing hardly any clouds at all. So that just shows you how powerful that is. Here where we get into some lesser amounts of the dust in the dry air, you can see a little bit of development. Yesterday we were tracking a little cluster of thunderstorms that was trying to develop into this little moist area, but really just didn't have time to get itself together and has really fallen apart. And some of that dust carries out here into the Gulf of Mexico and over towards the Bahamas and the Greater Antilles. Not as much dust out here over towards the Yucatan Peninsula. So we talked about that main development region. This is the favorite area for tropical development, really July into September. And of course, we're not far from the start of July, so it's really here between 10 and 20 degrees north latitude and about 20 to, say, 65 or 70 west. This is the main development region. This is where we watch those waves come off the coast of Africa, as we're seeing there, and try to develop. As we saw with that Saharan dust, it's very, very dry. You can see where we are seeing some of those clouds, but again, we got that very, very dry air there. So we're not looking at any kind of development really over the next 7 days other than that one low that I mentioned that might move into the Bay of Campeche and possibly develop into something over the weekend. Again, it would be fairly short-lived as it moves inland as we head into Monday, early next week. As far as the warm water, it's certainly out there. Look at the Gulf. Upper 80s, near 90 degrees as you get closer to the coastline there in Alabama. So very warm water. You need 80-degree water temperature to really sustain and build a tropical system. The warmer the water, the quicker a storm can develop. And again, we've got some very warm water, even here in the Bay of Campeche, right near the coastline, 82, but you get out here more into the open waters. We're looking at water temperatures in the mid-80s, upper 80s here through the western Caribbean. So we have the warm water. Just have to get all the atmospherics going, you know, the other things, the wind shear, that really determines how these tropical systems will develop. Caribbean, mid-80s, very warm water there, and out into the Atlantic, down here just south of that main development region, mid-80s. To the north of that, we still have some cold water in the 70s here from the Cabo Verde Islands, points northward. So there is some cooler water out there, so you really don't look for any kind of development out in that region just because the water temperature can't sustain it. Now, while things have been busy in the Pacific, it's been quiet in the Atlantic. As we mentioned, back on June 24th, we had Tropical Storm Andrea, only lasted for about 12 hours. If we do see tropical development there in the Bay of Campeche, if it does get up to tropical storm strength, the next name on the list in the Atlantic is Tropical Storm Barry. Now, as far as what we're looking at, the Climate Prediction Center, they put out a 2-week and a 3-week tropical development forecast. And you can see the one area that we're watching is actually here in the Pacific, saying a low chance of development. I think we will see something here as we go over the next several days. So I would even probably say even a moderate chance of development as we head over the next couple of weeks. Now, we will have something here over the next couple of days. This takes us July 2nd through July 8th if there's another wave that develops here south of the Mexican coastline. And then as we get into week 3, July 9th through July 15th, not looking at any development. So that's certainly some good news. We'll have to watch and see if that really does come to fruition. Now, again, we mentioned the Atlantic, mentioned that low that is across the Yucatan Peninsula that could develop into the Bay of Campeche over the next couple of days. The Atlantic otherwise has been fairly quiet, but the Pacific has been very active. And you can see this big cluster of thunderstorms here south of the Gulf of Tehuantepec. Now saying, according to the Hurricane Center, there's a 60% chance of development as we head late into the weekend or early next week, 90% chance over the next 7 days. And this has been an area that we've seen a lot of that tropical development as we've gone here through the first month and a half or so of the Pacific hurricane season. Remember, it starts on May 15th. So we're watching that cluster of thunderstorms that has a pretty good chance of development. And whether it drifts closer to the Mexican coastline, we've already seen storms come close to Acapulco before. That was Hurricane Eric, which was a Category 4 storm, weakened to a Category 3 before it made landfall. Earliest major hurricane to make landfall in the month of June along the Mexican coastline. So we'll have to watch and see what happens. Again, we could have our next named storm in the Pacific. That next name on the list is Flossie. We already had Tropical Storm Alvin, Hurricane Barbara, Cosme, Tropical Storm, Delilah, the tropical storm, and Eric was that major hurricane, a Category 4 storm. Again, it weakened to a Category 3 before it made landfall. And there you can see the rest of the names. There are extra names on the Pacific list. You know, the list from the Atlantic doesn't have all of these letters with them. Certainly doesn't have any X's and Y's and Z's, but we do have that in the Eastern Pacific. So that's the latest on the tropics right now across the region and across the Atlantic and across the Pacific here on Hurricane Hub Live. Again, we do this every Monday through Friday at 8 o'clock, whether there's something going on or not. You know, sometimes we might just have to talk about some of the development. We talked about the main development region Talked about the intertropical convergence zone before, so that might be something we have to talk about if things remain quiet in the Atlantic. Right now, the Pacific is keeping us pretty busy. I'm 13 News Now meteorologist Evan Stewart. We'll be back on Monday. Tim Pandagis will be back in for Hurricane Hub Live Monday night at 8 o'clock.